Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to explore a very important topic, the narcissist's fear, when you reclaim your independence. We'll discuss what drives narcissistic relationships, mainly power, control, and domination, and what happens when you start to push back. I'll share insights on how narcissists react when their grip is challenged, especially when you assert your independence or stop playing by their rules. So let's get started and understand the dynamics behind this powerful fear that can come up when you begin to reclaim your autonomy. So why does control matter so much to narcissists? Well, a narcissistic person tends to see relationships as transactions that serve their ego. Essentially, you are useful to them only as long as you fit into the role they've assigned, being obedient, dependent, and always available to provide supply. And by supply, I mean attention, validation, or admiration. Now, this means they need you to stay in that specific role to maintain their sense of superiority. But here, the key part, when you start to grow, succeed, or establish boundaries, they often see that as a threat. It's not just about feeling uncomfortable, it actually destabilizes their entire sense of power. Because for narcissists, their sense of control and superiority depends on keeping others in a specific place. When that system is challenged, it dismantles the psychological framework they rely on to feel powerful. So, control isn't just a preference for them, it's central to how they maintain their identity and sense of importance. Let's talk about some common scenarios that tend to trigger either narcissistic rage or withdrawal. These situations are quite frequent in real life and often have a similar underlying theme. For example, when an adult child of a narcissistic parent finally becomes financially independent, it's like removing the parent's main source of control. That shift can provoke a strong reaction because their power over the child is suddenly gone. Similarly, in a narcissistic relationship, if a partner earns a promotion or lands a new job, it can upset the delicate balance of power within the household. The narcissist may feel threatened or lose their sense of control, which can lead to rage or withdrawal. Another common scenario involves an employee working under a narcissistic boss. If that employee resigns for a better opportunity or starts their own business, it means they're no longer under the boss's micromanagement and influence. In each of these cases, what's really happening is that the narcissist is confronted with a harsh reality. They can no longer dominate your choices or control you. That loss of control is often what triggers their intense reactions, whether it's anger or withdrawal. Understanding these patterns helps us see how these situations threaten their sense of power, which is central to their behavior. When control starts to slip away from a narcissist, they often respond with familiar patterns of behavior designed to regain power or cause harm. One common tactic is minimization and sabotage. They might belittle your achievements, telling you things like, "You'll never last in that new job," or "This success won't last," or even "You're setting yourself up for disappointment." The goal here is to make you doubt yourself and shrink back into submission. Another strategy they use is victimhood and guilt tripping. They adopt the poor me narrative, saying things like, "I guess you don't need me anymore," or "Everything always works out for you, nothing ever works out for me." By casting themselves as the victim, they try to pressure you into feeling guilty for growing or changing. They also resort to abandonment and withdrawal. This could look like threatening to leave, giving you the silent treatment, or implying that your independence makes you too busy or unloving. The message is clear. If you don't need me, I won't stay. It's a way to make you feel insecure about your independence. Finally, some narcissists escalate to revenge and smear campaigns. They might go on the offensive by spreading rumors, sabotaging your projects, withholding important information, or actively trying to damage your reputation. These tactics are all about regaining control and hurting you when they feel threatened. Understanding these behaviors helps us recognize the patterns and protect ourselves from their manipulation. Let's talk about the deeper truth behind healing from narcissistic relationships. It often means reclaiming that sense of autonomy we were forced to suppress. Many survivors describe it as feeling like they had to clip their own wings, just to keep the peace. They stayed small, quiet, and dependent because any attempt at growth was met with punishment or rejection. Now, here's the painful paradox. As you start to individuate, to step fully into your own life and embrace your independence, you will likely face the narcissist's anger, rejection, or even abandonment. But it's crucial to understand that this reaction isn't about your worth. It's about their inability to handle a relationship that isn't centered around control or domination. So, in essence, healing requires this process of individuation. It's about reclaiming your independence, even though it might trigger a storm. Remember, your growth and freedom are signs of your strength, not of their power over you. So, in this final slide, I want to highlight the core takeaway from everything we've discussed. Narcissistic relationships are built on a fragile balance where one person is in control and the other is expected to comply. When you start to succeed, become independent, or develop self-respect, you threaten that balance. And that's when the narcissist's response is usually one of two extremes, either explosive rage or cold, withdrawal and abandonment. Here's the important part. This is the hardest but most freeing truth. Your growth, your independence, and your true self are often not tolerated in these relationships. Staying small, quiet, or controlled might feel safer in the moment, but it comes at a far greater cost to your well-being and authenticity. True healing begins the moment you realize that your wings are meant to be spread wide. It's about starting to fly, regardless of whether others can follow. That's when real change happens, and that's when you reclaim your life.